What is good, YouTube? We going to dive deep into Jujutsu Kaisen 265. And what I want to talk about is what it means to be a Jujutsu Kaisen to Yuji, and talk about the peak writing that Gege has officially done. Because Yuji has officially made Sukuna angry, something we haven't seen before. But how did we get here? We start where we left off, where Sukuna states that sorcerers bonds with each other dueling because of cursed energy arising. But for this instance, this feels a little different. Yuji doesn't know exactly what his domain is, or if this even a domain. They stop by a statue. This statue is called Onikenbai, technically one form of Ninbutsu Kenbai, which means Buddhist enlightenment dance. This shows us how Yuji is starting to change and become more enlightened. We check out the scene where Yuji talks about his grandpa friend. He ended up there because of his grandpa's friend funeral. He wondered if his grandfather friend would have came to his grandpa's funeral if his grandfather died first. We then stop at the scene where Yuji tells Sukuna that those flowers are morning glory, but Sukuna corrects her to tell him that they're hydrangea flowers. Hydrangea has a deeper meaning in Buddhism. Blue hydrangea symbolizes gratitude and forgiveness. Pink symbolizes love and sincerity, and purple symbolizes friendship and loyalty. These flowers all have meaning to Yuji's enlightenment because Yuji is trying to understand Sukuna. When we look at the flowers, this linked back to chapter 236, when Satoru Gojo said that you can admire a blooming flower, but you cannot make a flower understand you. Sukuna knows about these flowers, looking through Megumi's memories, but to him, none of this matters, which he states when Yuji asks about knowing the place where the flowers are from, and Sukuna's response was that he did not read through the irrelevant memories of Yuji's. He didn't really care. As we move on, Yuji is trying to teach Sukuna the value of human life by taking Sukuna fishing, showing him the farm that he grew up in, and going archery with Sukuna. Sukuna shows that he's good at archery, seeing as he's from a time period that archery was prevalent. And what makes this chapter so compelling isn't the action that we are used to seeing, but the message that is going on, because we have been seeing other sources in the past from their timeline try to teach Sukuna about love. But each sorcerer failed. Now Yuji is doing the same thing in his own way, trying to teach Sukuna the word compassion. But all this doing is disgusting Sukuna, who tells Yuji to get to the point already. What Yuji says that he no longer believes that he is a cog in the machine, and that giving someone a proper death is not the only thing in life. What Yuji says is that walking the dog, raising a family are fine, as well as eating, using the restroom, sleeping are good. Basically, the average human life, even if he was stuck in the bed, sick, that has some meaning and value to Yuji. So let's take a look at Mekamaru, who, despite his disabilities, didn't stop him from loving Miwa, who cried about his death. Miwa explains this is the life of a Jujutsu sorcerer, because when you become friends, it's always some sort of distance because sorcerers often die. The people close to them have to bear the burden. But Todo had taught Yuji looking for meaning or logic in death will defy the memories of the ones we have lost. This leads into a connection that the sorcerers are with them as their legacy lives on. What Yuji is trying to highlight to Sukuna is that everyone has some value, whether they have a rich lifestyle or a poor lifestyle. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't cling to life. This is something that Sukuna told Yuji about how weak he was in chapter 214. Yuji is going through this whole childhood trying to get through to Sukuna about the beauty of life. He talked about how he loved milk tea, how every time he heard bells ringing, that made him think Santa Claus really did exist. Also, I just want to point out that Yuji is probably talking to Megumi, also seeing as Megumi has no will to live, and Megumi can hear every single thing that Yuji is saying to Sukuna. He is trying to tell Megumi that his life has meaning and that he doesn't have to be a Jujutsu sorcerer anymore to have his role in society, even though he had lost his sister. He still has a role in life. Now we're going to take a look at the crayfish scene where Yuji challenged Sukuna to a fishing contest. In the contest, Sukuna believed he had won because his fish was bigger, but Yuji rebunks him, telling him that Sukuna's fish is an American crayfish, while his was a Japanese crayfish, which is rarer. What this is illustrating here is that Sukuna believes that bigger means better or stronger. But if we think about this in the real world, that is not always the case, because some things that are rare are worth more than something that is bigger. Sukuna is the epitome of overwhelming aggression. He sees strength as everything, and if you don't have strength, you should just die. Animals have been shown to have some form of emotion, but for someone like Sukuna, he cannot feel a thing no matter what Yuji is trying to do. Yuji tells Sukuna that he doesn't like him because to Sukuna, humans are his playthings that he can use whenever he feels like it. Yuji says that humans are not tools, that they are not born with a set of roles. He doesn't know if humans are fundamentally good or bad, but he still wanted Sukuna to see other things than himself. We see that Yuji has evolved from the character that wanted to give someone a proper death to someone who was a cog in the machine, to now we're seeing him value preserving life. It also saddens Yuji to know that Sukuna is a true psychopath. He doesn't feel a thing. This also astounds Sukuna that Yuji's rage and hatred towards him amounts to nothing. But then Sukuna has an epiphany. He realizes that Yuji is pitying him and showing him some form of compassion and mercy. That is when we see that Yuji begins to threaten Sukuna, telling him if he releases Megumi and return to his body, he will spare Sukuna's life. Sukuna stated that Yuji's soul punches can kill him, and it's even more apparent with the domain expansion sure hit attack. He can definitely take out Sukuna. No question about that. He seemed to have been slowly catching up to Sukuna. But this threat pisses Sukuna off, and he loses his composure for the first time in the story, stating that he is going to torture everyone Yuji cares about in front of Yuji's eyes. This is how the chapter ends, which is crazy how we're seeing Sukuna slowly lose his temper and everything. But I want to know, what are your thoughts on this chapter in the comments below. I'll be in the comments for about an hour, and I will talk to you on the next video. See y'all.